Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, the Mini, the Pole and the Plant Pot. Wherein a close friend struggles with both printers and a penny-wise dollar-foolish boss. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. The Mini, the Pole and the Plant Pot. My office is located at an activity center in a rural area. Until relatively recently, the only options for connectivity were ADSL lines, 5 Mbit on a good day, leased lines, very expensive due to needing to pull fiber 16 km/10 miles, so it was never really an option, and ISDN/T1 services over copper. Then our local telco supplier started offering fiber to the premises connections for much less than what a leased line cost. So we went from our 5 Mbit ADSL to a 300/30 Mbit link, and the world was a better place. That was until one afternoon, just before the long Easter weekend, where I was planning on having a quiet time with family. I just finished walking the 1.5 mile/2.4 km route home when I got a call from my boss saying, "Be warned, your office might call, they've lost their internet connection." They said something about an accident. Now, being the curious sort, I got home, jumped in the car and headed back up to the office. Turns out the accident was an unfortunate person in a new type mini estate/station wagon, who'd managed to come together with a telephone pole. Quite a serious coming together, in fact. The pole had been sheared off at the base, all the wiring ripped out, and the pole deposited on the road. A right old mess of things. Problem was, this telephone pole carried all of the site connectivity across a main/trunk road. The FTTP fiber. The 12-line ISDN service. And a 20-core cable that carried about 5 voice/ADSL lines. The only positives were that the driver of the Mini was unharmed, and that there was one less mini estate on the road. As there was no chance of getting services back that day, I simply called our comms suppliers and headed for home. The next day there was no sign of any telco response, so I plunked myself in the canteen, the only part of the building with mobile phone service, and worked via my laptop and a mobile data hotspot. The other issue was that all the site phone numbers had been forwarded to my mobile, so I had to handle all communications for the site. I struggled on waiting for the telco to come out to repair things, and fortunately, it was a pretty quiet few days. Unfortunately, this repair seemed to be rather down the priority list for the telco. We got one chap who started fault finding one of the lines, which was with a different provider to the others. Problem was, he was mystified he couldn't get a dial tone or anything on any of the lines. It was only by chance I saw him as I passed work in the car and pointed out that the cable for that line was currently buried in a hedge. I may have ruined his plan to claim Easter weekend overtime with that particular bit of information. As the days wore on, we started thinking of how to get some kind of connectivity back. The main issue with this site was that it was a converted manor house with very thick walls, so mobile service didn't penetrate the building. What this meant was that the only areas with mobile service were those with large glazed areas like the canteen. Fortunately, the canteen had an AP mounted near the window with a power socket next to it. We then came up the idea of grabbing a 4G-based router that would take a corporate SIM, tuning it up to give the same IP range as our main router, and plugging it in. All we had to do was find somewhere with signal to stash the router. Enter the random plant pots stacked along the windowsill. These were obviously located where there was plenty of sunlight, and a quick test with a mobile phone showed there was a decent signal available. We stuffed the router behind one of the plant pots, to discourage any playing with it, ran the cable up the wall to the AP socket, near the ceiling, pulled the normal router/firewall out of service, and we got back a very basic service level back. Luckily, we had a couple of 3G femtocells, so we could get mobile services working in the building and divert all the calls to someone else's mobile. Now we thought we'd only need to do this for a couple of days until the telco got themselves sorted. Unfortunately, the telco were in no hurry, and it took 2.5 weeks for us to get service back despite putting escalations and complaints through to everyone that anyone had a contact for. During this, our supplier, who had to deal with telco, were getting reports and excuses. One excuse read, and I quote, "Unfortunately, the company that is contracted to do the local replacement has had their site broken into, stock stolen, and the vehicles vandalized. So apparently they'd run out of service vans and or spare poles." Of course, it would be cynical of me to suspect that the real reason was that a local council had just core drilled through the main fibre for North West Wales just up the road, and they didn't have enough fibre repair techs available to do both jobs at once. Anyways, the job was finally completed at the end of the 2.5 weeks with 8 telco vans, a pole erection truck, a traffic light control team, and a veritable army of techs. After an all-day job, we finally had all the services back online, with nary a crossed pair in the 20 pair. I dread to think how much it cost the driver's insurance, as a set of traffic lights on a trunk road is £1,000 on its own, plus £1,000 to replace a pole, plus 9 techs for the day, plus our compensation claim for 2 weeks 4 GUs. Suffice to say, I've bought cheaper cars than that bill. Wherein a close friend struggles with both printers and a penny-wise dollar-foolish boss. Not about me, but one of my friends also in the IT business. He inherited admin status of a site which started out as 4 workstations and grew pretty haphazardly till he got a hold of it at 60 workstations, and a slew of peripherals. The thing is, before he got there, every department was basically given free rein to get whatever software and hardware that they wanted to do their job, within a certain budget. Meaning there was no cohesion at all, no standardization. He had 15 printers of an astounding array of makes and models, all with their own ink. Not even joking, an entire enclosed office was dedicated just for storing ink. And a lot of those printers were so old that the manufacturers didn't even make ink for them anymore, and he had to hunt eBay and refill services to fill requirements, and half of which was unusable on arrival due to age anyway. So one of his first projects was to standardize the printers. So he brought the owner 2 proposals for managed print services, with reasonable cost per page and good reviews. Owner looked at the numbers and rejected it, and told friend to just go buy new printers. So he bought 15 HP OfficeJets and set them up. The remaining printers were specialty, such as wide format or impact printing. One type of printer, one type of ink, every department can use every other department's inks, and the cost per page is close to what a managed service would offer. Fast forward 3 months, and there is noticeable savings on consumables, and reduced downtime, and everyone is happy. Until owner hears about refillable tanks from a fellow business owner, who has exactly 2 printers, and starts seeing more dollars he can trim off the bottom line, and orders my friend to implement it on all printers. Friend, that's not a good idea. At most you'll be saving maybe $30 a printer per month, and you run the risk of damaging the print heads. Owner, my buddy told me that was BS, and he's been running tanks for years with no problems. Friend, and your buddy has 2 printers and they're already ancient to begin with, so their printhead screens are big enough to let boulders through. Owner, what does that have to do with it? Friend, modern printers have finer printhead screens. The ink needs to be a much higher quality than most refill places can handle, and the ones that can do it will basically charge you what a retail cartridge would cost. Owner, look, it's just ink. I know you're defensive about this project, but IT is a cost center, and we need to reduce your department's drain as much as possible. Friend literally bit a decent scrap out of his inside cheek hearing this, and kept having to swallow his own blood trickle for the rest of the talk. Friend, every printer that fails will come out of our pocket, as they will not honor a warranty replacement caused by non-OEM ink, and they'll know we're using a tank even before the printer fails. They can't legally stop us from doing it, but they have spent more than $1 million on software and research to make sure as F***ck they know when we do. Owner, it's your job to keep it running, it's my job to decide how to pay for it, so bring me 3 proposals for tank systems by the end of the day, and we will move forward with the best one. They chose a system, my friend installed it, and within 2 weeks the first printhead failed. Within a month 3 printers were down. Owner, can't you just change the print heads? They can't be that expensive. Friend, the entire reason this printer is so fast and ink efficient is that it's a full-page printer. The print head is actually 20% of the lower mechanism, and it is not only not intended to be serviced by end users, replacing them is such a pain in the ass that HP just replaces the entire printer instead of trying to repair our existing one. But not in our case, because, non-OEM ink. Owner, just reassign users on the broken printers to the closest working one to them. I'm not paying for replacements. Friend sighs and does as ordered. Within the next 5 months, a total of 9 out of 15 printers fail. Employees are complaining about lining up at printers, getting the wrong print jobs, and having to walk a few more feet than they are normally used to. Of course, all this hate comes squarely down on my friend's shoulders, and when your users hate IT, that's when things start to get really bad. Finally, close to a year after the tank swap, HP sends out a firmware update and support refuses to even work on a machine until the update is applied. So he applies the update. Within a week, the remaining 6 all die mysteriously, all with print head failures. Now, I'm not saying HP updated their firmware to brick non-OEM ink using printers, but that's a pretty short time to have 6 printers die at once. That said, they were in a bind. Owner blamed friend, and then came to the rescue with the idea of hiring a print management service, using all the data points and even the service provider that friend had proposed during the initial plan. The department heads all comment how smart that is, and chide friend for not thinking of that in the first place and putting everyone through all this trouble for his pet project. Friend goes home and downs a handle of vodka, because speaking up would cost his job. Wish I had a happier ending for you all, but real life doesn't often play out like a story. There was no vindication for the one that put in the most effort to prevent the problem from ever happening.